So I warmly welcome you to the Discovery program. My name is Abhishek, and I have been a part of Pratian for more than 5 years. So I have worked as a developer in multiple projects, starting from the US healthcare to the food tech and multiple startup projects also. So today I'll be taking you through the product design session, and this session is particularly to make you aware and understand how to think about creating a new product, and also if you want to have your own products to be developed, what are the different phases that you need to consider. So let us look at the learning outcomes from this particular session. So by the end of this session, we'll be able to identify what are the different phases of product development life cycle, and also we're going to see what are the different stages for product design, and you'll be able to analyze and develop products from some ideas, how we can convert those ideas into actual features, and you'll also develop some skills on using the Azure DevOps cloud services. Finally, we'll write down one new requirement in the Azure cloud services, and you will be able to analyze two requirements which I'll be sharing with you all, and you'll be able to write it on your own, understand, analyze, and write the new requirement into the Azure DevOps service. And also you will be able to relate to the role of business analyst in an IT industry. So what does a business analyst does, and what are the responsibilities of a business analyst in the IT industry. So this is going to be the overall outcome of the session. So let us begin with the life cycle of the product development. So there are different phases in the product development life cycle, starting with identifying or defining the problem statement. So identifying the problem is the most critical part of any solution. So because depending upon the problem, how critical it is, the solution is going to depend on that. So we need to identify the problem, the root cause of the problem, and also we need to identify how we can figure out certain ideas and solutions to solve that problem. So all these things are being done in the problem definition phase, and here the business analyst plays a very important role in doing all this. And once that is done, the second phase is the concept design. So in the concept design phase, all these ideas from the previous phase are considered, and here in this particular phase, the UX designers and the UX developers, they design the prototype of the real application. So it is a prototype in the sense it is going to be a replica of the real application, but only to give you an idea of what actually the final product is going to be. So that is the concept design. And once that is done, the third phase is the architecture phase, where the system and the solution architect, they come together, design the architecture for the project, what all technologies to be used, that is decided. And once that is done, the fourth phase is the development phase, where all the developers, whether it is a UI developer, a backend developer, a Android developer, or a ML or AI developer, so all these people comes together, they take up each of the features, and they start developing the actual product. They start working on the actual product. And finally, once the development is done, we move into the release cycle. So here the DevOps team plays a very critical role in launching the application into different environments. So the environment basically are like the development environment, the testing environment, and the live environment. So they need to decide into which environment they have to release, and what all the scalability of the product should be. So each and everything is decided by the DevOps team in the release cycle. So the first phase of the release is towards the testing phase. So in the testing cycle, here the quality analyst plays a very critical role in testing the application and making sure that the quality of the product is very high and there is no bugs or there is no blockers in the application. And once they assure that the product is good to be launched to the market, then the product is made to be live, or it is being available to the users. So it is being launched into the live environment again by the DevOps team. So here the actual customers or the end users will be able to use the application, and they can share their feedbacks or their experience about using the application. And once that is done, the final phase is the maintenance phase. So where we have a group of people who are from different roles, like it can be a developer, a QA, a BA, and they all come together and work towards maintaining the application, enhancing the features, also solving some minor issues or minor bugs. So that is the entire product development life cycle. So I hope this is in a gist. I'll just explain the entire cycle. So right now in this session, we are going to look into how we can define a problem and how we can actually find a solution. So that is the first phase of the product development life cycle. So for doing that, we are going to take a problem statement, a real case study. So which is I have considered from the Indian healthcare analysis. So India has a population of 1.3 billion people, and there has always been a disease burden. So apart from what is going on right now. So we see that India is witnessing nearly 2 million heart attacks every year. So that is a huge number. And also, the frequency of heart disease in young Indians is 15 to 18% higher than any other population globally. So you can see in the average Indians, like who are in the young age group, the increase in the heart disease is quite critical, the rate of increase. And also an average Indian spends around rupees 2 lakhs on a heart surgery to mitigate the risk of heart attack. So you can multiply this 2 lakhs by the 2 million people, so you can figure out how much amount is being spent for all these surgeries overall. So even with all these things, there are a lot of heart failure in numbers, like 23% people or the patients die within 1 year of diagnosis. And again, the number is expected to increase to 8 million by 2030. So in about 10 years time, it's going to be like 4 times. So and also it cost to the economy $108 billion. So you can see overall this is a huge problem, and it is underlying in front of our eyes. So we need to do something about this. So this is our problem statement. So how we can figure out a solution, or how we can find out something which can help to mitigate this problem. So we are going to look into identifying the prior heart attacks. So how we can predict the heart attacks, and we can help the people from getting a heart attack, so that they can lead a healthy life, and they cannot they may save that amount of money for all the surgeries and all those things. So our system can also inform the patients that you might be having a risk of heart attack in the next 6 months, or maybe in the next 1 or 2 years, so that they can take the necessary precautions, right? So this is our goal for finding the solution. So what is the first step we need to look into? So the first step we have to look into is the research phase for finding the solution. So we have to do a proper research and analysis before we can actually come into conclusion. So we should have all the facts and figures right for developing a better solution. So the research can be with respect to anything. It can be with respect to the number of deaths which are happening due to heart attack, or it can be with respect to the deaths in the age group for heart attack, or what are the primary causes for heart attack. So these are some examples uh, which is a part of the research. So obviously there can be a lot more research points which we can look into. Typically it takes some couple of weeks to do the complete research. So I can show you one example of the research document. So this is one analysis of the research, the deaths which are happening due to the cardiovascular diseases in India in the age group, in the different age groups. So you can see here, less than 50 years of age, the increase in 32%. Less than 40 years, there is increase in 31%, and less than 30 years, there is increase in 27%. So Basically, you can see this is one of the research document which we are having right now. So like this, we need to find out, do a complete research and have all the facts and figures so that we can develop a better solution. So once this is done, so the next thing we need to look into what are the different impact areas of our solution. So like I said, India has 1.3 billion people, and I just assume that 35.3 lakh people are affected due to the heart attack. Now, suppose our solution is able to help only 10% of these people from getting a heart attack, only 10%. So that means we can save 3.5 lakh people. So that is the people impact which we are having. And if this 3.5 lakh people save around 2 lakhs each for a heart surgery, so that will be a $70 billion. So you can see that is the financial impact. So they can invest in some better things in their life. So we need to figure out what are the different impact areas my solution is going to have, whether it is towards the country, towards the economy, towards the environment, towards the people, or whatever it is. So this is an example of what are the impact areas and how big you want your solution to reach out. So once that is done, so this is also comes under the analysis part. So once this is done, next we look into the ideation phase. So in the ideation phase, the team comes together and they think about what all the possible ideas which we can have, which can mitigate the risk of heart attack, or maybe it can predict the heart attack, and maybe we can help the patients from preventing a heart disease. So that is basically the ideation phase. So the ideations can be like, it can be a continuous monitoring. So continuous monitoring is like we can ask the patients to have a regular monitoring which can be related, like they can do a monthly or a weekly checkup, right? So that can be one of the ideation. So what else can we have as a part of the ideation? So maybe I'd like to ask you all, maybe you can suggest some points. You can even type your answers in the questions panel, so you can use that to type your answers. So I'd like to ask you, like, what all the different ideas which we can incorporate as a part of the ideation to mitigate the risk of heart attack. So maybe we can have continuous monitoring, maybe we can impart education to the people or the patients so that they should know what are the do's and don'ts. So what else can we have as an ideation? So I'd like to ask you all, so you can reply directly, or you can even reply in the questions panel of the GoToWebinar. All are unmuted, I think. Okay, Ignacio sir is saying consider previous health conditions. Yes, that's great. So yes, definitely we can have a previous history of health conditions. Maybe we can have some IoT devices, or something else we can have. So let me give you some examples. So we can have education as one of the important things as a part of ideation. We can also have prediction of heart attacks, like with the help of machine learning and AI systems, we can predict the heart attacks so that we can tell whether which patient is likely to have a heart attack. And we can also have some smart assist or a bot. So smart assist, you can consider it like the Google Assistant. We can have our own smart assistant which can help connect the patients from all the remote locations to the doctors across the world. So that in that way it can have a better communication for the patients with the doctors, right? And even they can share the reports, and each and everything, all the diagnosis might be done virtually. So that is the smart assist or the bot which we can have. Or we can also have some IoT integrated monitoring, like we can have some smart bit or some Fitbit or some blood pressure monitoring devices, so which can give us some data. So these are some of the ideation. Definitely it takes some time to ideate on the thoughts, so we can have a really like 100 to 200 ideas coming up from the entire team when you work in the real project. So that is basically the ideation phase. We list down what all the possibilities which can be a part of our solution. Now, once that is done, the next phase is visualization. So in the visualization, the first thing is the solution landscape. We create the solution landscape. So the solution landscape is like a big picture of the entire solution. So what all the entities we are going to have, what all the devices we are considering, what is the revenue model of our application, how our application is going to earn money, and who all the users will be. So each and everything are decided in the solution landscape. And the second point is the actors. So the actors are basically the different category of users who are going to use our application. Okay, so the actors can be a patient. The patient can be an actor. So why the patient is an actor? Because the patient is definitely going to use our application to monitor his health stats, or maybe to talk to a nearest doctor, or to check his whether he's going to have a heart attack or not. So that is what patient is one of the actors. And another category of actor can be doctors. So doctors can also use our application, right? So doctor can use it for checking which patient is most likely to have a criticality of getting a heart attack, or maybe he can provide some medication to some patients or some other reasons. So the actors are basically the different category of users, the customers who are going to use our application. So these are some examples which I gave just now. And the third point is the activities. Now, each of these actors are going to have different activities. Like the patient is going to have different activities in the application. So he will be using it for checking the dashboard, talking to the doctor, or for getting the medications, or what for reason. And the doctor will have different activities. So that we define all the activities of the different actors in this step. And finally, we create a workflow. So the workflow, you can consider it like a flow diagram or a flow chart, so which can graphically show me that the actors and its activities across different activities, which we can create different workflows. So that is a graphical representation of the entire activities of the actors. So we'll see some examples of each. So you can see this is the solution landscape or the solution model canvas, the first point. So typically we fill up all these things. So what is the business model? What are the business entities we are going to have? Then what all devices we are going to consider? Like our solution should be for a mobile, for an iOS, or for a Windows system, or for a tablet, or whatever it is. What are the different actors, what is the licensing model, what should be the accounts and privileges for each of the users. So all these things are decided in the solution landscape phase. What are the tech components we are going to use, all these things. So this is the first thing. And the second point which I said is the actors. Like I said, the patient and doctors can be one of the actors. And also we can have the hospitals also as one of the actor, because they can use our application, maybe because the patients who are very critical might be admitted to the hospital. So through our application they can keep a track of the patients, and even the patients can consult to the nearest hospital for emergency purpose. So that way hospitals can be one of the actors. Then we can have the clinical labs. So these labs also can use our application, because the patients might be using the labs for their reports, for getting the reports. So we can have a direct integration with the labs, the clinical labs, so that they can provide us with the different reports for different patients. And we can also have the insurance companies as one of the actors, because most of the patients will be having a health insurance. So whenever they are hospitalized, the insurance companies or the insurance will cover that. So these are the different types of actors which can be a part of our application. Okay, yeah. So these are some examples which I said. So definitely, if you think through, we can get some different category of actors or users also. So now each one of this plays a different role in the application, right? So each of these actors will have different activities. What the patient will be doing, the doctor will not be doing the same thing, right? And similarly for the other actors also. So we define all the activities for each of the actors, and then we create a workflow like this. So I'm going to explain you one of the activities of one of the actors. So that is, we are considering the patient as one of the actors. So you can see here, once the patient comes to the application or opens the application, we first check whether he is already registered or not. If he is not registered, we ask him to register. And if he is already registered, he can directly sign in to the application. And once he signs in, he will be able to see the dashboard, or you can say it is the home page of the application, where he will be able to see his report or his statistics or his previous reports or whatever it is. He can see it in the dashboard. And he will also be able to provide some data, some his reports, so into our system, so that our system can predict and say whether he is fine or whether he is going to have a chance of heart attack or some other disease. So that is the disease identification part. And he can also directly use the health assist or the smart assist to talk to the nearest doctor or the consultation service, so which is shown in this particular last point. So you can see this is typically one of the activities of the patient which is depicted in the workflow. So visually it becomes easier to understand how the journey of the patient is going to be. So once all these things are defined, the final step is defining the scope, considering the business and other needs. Now, what do you mean by defining the scope? So the scope is basically what is the most important feature which we are going to consider for our application initially. So what is going to be our unique selling point for the solution? So just to give you an example, maybe whenever Facebook or WhatsApp or any other, you can take any example of any application. So when they launch into the market initially, so they come up with only some basic features which is intended, which is their USP or their unique selling point. So like WhatsApp's USP was, it was mostly for a chat application. So they wanted to be a chat application. So they had only the chat feature. So that is, they have considered in the scope of the application initially. And gradually with every release or every update, they have added some new features every time. So for our application, we need to define what is going to be the unique selling point, or what is that is the most important feature. So that is called as defining the scope. So let us define what all things are the most important for our application. So the first critical feature which needs to be there is the prior detection with IoT enabled devices. So the why we need this feature is because it will provide us the data, right? So all these IoT devices are going to give us the data. So that is why this feature is very important. Now, once we get all this data, so we need to do something about this. We cannot just keep it and store it in the database, right? So that is why the second point or the second feature is very important. That is prediction, predicting the probability of heart attacks by this data, all this data. So that is the second feature. So we can use machine learning and AI algorithms and all to predict the probability of heart attack based on all the data being collected. So, and the third most important feature is we can have a smart bot or a smart assist to connect to the nearest doctor or the health facility, right? So these three are our main features, or we can consider it in the scope initially. So without this, we cannot roll out into the market. So we can define the name of the application as Hearty Health, saving a life with intelligent heart analysis. Okay, So that is the entire problem statement. So till now you have seen that how we have thought about a problem and how we can derive into getting the features, and how each and every step, how we can define more accurately, how we can figure out the features and the sub features, right? So once the scope is done, the the next most important thing is we need to add all these things in the requirement. So we need to document all these things into one place, into one repository. So we are going to use the Microsoft Azure Cloud Platform and to write down or to document all these requirements, right? So why we are documenting? So that each and every people in the team, they can follow all the features, they can understand all the features anytime, so there is no misunderstanding among each of the team members, right? So that is the point of using this Microsoft Azure cloud, and it is being used across in the industry for project management process.